Well, as we continue with our lockdown in the Isle of Man, I thought it was a good chance to find out how our friends, colleagues in Guernsey are going. And of course, I had a chance to go there in the summer when we both had that air bridge. Euan is joining us from BBC Radio Guernsey. Well, you're ahead of us now. You are certainly dealing with the situation that we are in, and you obviously can feel the pain, I'm sure, and know what's going on. So I thought a good catch up with you. Tell us about the last few weeks. What was it like when you first had this sudden outbreak?
Well, it was very sudden. We all woke up on Saturday morning to be told there's an urgent press briefing and we should all pay attention to what's coming next. Of course, that doesn't sound good in the current climate. So we all strapped ourselves in and braced ourselves, much like I'm sure you did when you went into your lockdown at the start of January. And it was similar. We found 4 cases on the island from unknown community source. And from those 4 cases, we went up to over 500 in a matter of weeks. So it was really staggering. And they've later found out it was from this new Kent variant, which we hadn't seen in the islands before. So that obviously explains the transmissibility. And they've seen a huge amount of data that's come out from this second wave, if you like, in Guernsey. And they've seen how transmissible it is within households. It's about 74% of cases came from households. So it's much a different experience than we had during the first outbreak.
Now, your government put out the word, shut down, but I understand initially a few people were still going to work with, coughs and sputters and that sort of thing. It's harder to lock down the second time, wasn't it, or the third time?
Well, it was only a second time locking down. I'm not sure that was widespread. I think there's a few instances where people were going to work, and there might have been a few businesses which weren't necessarily as understanding for people to work from home. But the government did, continue the message of please work from home if you can. The island did respond really, really quickly to going into lockdown. We were told initially, before even the press conference at 12 o'clock, you must social distance where you can. People were queuing up to go to the shops at 9 in the morning in the socially distanced fashion, which we've seen on television and in the UK, and something that we hadn't had to do in Guernsey for 7 months. So it was a bit of a shock, but you know what, everyone reacted really quickly and proactively as well.
And you went fuller than us, because our current lockdown we can still have takeaways and click and collect from DIY stores. Yours was much more of a fuller lockdown, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was the most restrictive lockdown that we'd seen since the first wave and that initial period. But you know what, the science is there to say the reasons why they did it. And they said if they didn't shut down completely, we'd have seen a lot more cases than we did. 500 is still an incredible number from 4 cases of community seeding. But the numbers did steadily decline after 3 weeks. And the lockdown has proved that it was the right thing to do. Of course, we'll never know otherwise what could have happened. But we're now, as of Monday, the 8th of March, we're now easing out of our lockdown, where bars and restaurants and cafes can open again. This time there will be 2 meters different distance between tables, and people will be asked to wear face masks in restaurants, cafes, bars, that kind of setting, which we didn't have to do in the previous lockdown when we exited. But we have been told that, in 2 weeks, maybe we might be back to the freedoms that allowed, the air bridge between the Isle of Man and Guernsey last year. And we could be back to something that we saw only just last year.
And the schools, they're going back as well, aren't they?
The schools have gone back today for all pupils. Some pupils of essential workers have been back for a few weeks now, but today is the first day where all pupils from all schools will come back. And I spoke to some teachers last week, and they're really buzzing to have the children back. Of course, it's a strange experience for them, trying to teach children when they're not there, they can't interact with them in the same way. And I'm sure the pupils are feeling the same. So I think everyone's very excited today to be back in school.
Now, one thing that's already been struck off is having all those ships coming in that come and see you each year, the tourists. That's not going to happen.
Well, they've said for now that's not going to happen. That decision's been taken by our Economic Development Committee. Of course, it's being mirrored around the world. There's nowhere that's really allowing cruise ships in right now. I think we have to wait until numbers in jurisdictions outside of our borders, certainly, I'm sure, for the Economic Development Committee to allow that again. But I mean, it is being reviewed constantly, and we might see a change in that later in the year. We might not.
Well, you're ahead of us now. I mean, we both of us had our moments when we've had full, openness again. It's interesting to see, from our point of view, your path here now. When, if everything goes right, when will you fully be open then?
Well, it could be 2 weeks from today. Of course, we have to monitor the numbers. Guernsey's now gone 8 days without a recorded case of the virus being picked up, which is fantastic news, obviously. Sort of mirrors what we saw during our last lockdown, where we went over 100 days without a new case. Of course, we weren't doing as much testing then, so it's hard to sort of compare the two times. But I certainly think that the noises from the government are that in a couple of weeks, do you know what, if the cases are looking the same, we're comfortable with the amount of people coming forward for testing, we can cope with it, the hospital's in a good position, the other islands of the bailiwick, such as Alderney and Sark and Herm as well, continue to show no cases there at all, then I think we will begin to open up in 2 weeks' time. And I'm sure people will welcome that. You know, we were told this was going to be a short lockdown. Well, it's been a bit longer than that now. It's been longer than your and the Isle of Man in your first lockdown, but we are showing the results that could enable a restriction-free summer, certainly in the bailiwick of Guernsey.